Introducing the Immersive Learning and Development Workshop by SkillsVR.
Well, welcome everyone. Great to have you here in SkillsVR. Hands up who's actually put a headset on before. Oh, that's impressive. Who hasn't then? Okay, that's good. When we did this a year ago, I think there was only about one hand that went up that actually had tried a VR headset, so that's a good start. I thought I'd just spend a little bit of time, only a few minutes, just giving you a little bit of a baseline as to where we came from. So we didn't wake up one morning and go, wow, we're going to get into VR. It actually happened 11 years ago, and we started our business by educating and equipping young unemployed people. And we did it by giving them a business, and we gave them an opportunity to run their own business. And in that time, was actually our goal was not so much about the business, it was actually about teaching them the employability skills, how to communicate, how to be resilient, how to build teamwork, how to do all of those key employability skills, problem solving, critical thinking. And what we found over that time was that was incredibly successful. Put 103 people through the program, and we are 11 years out from that start of that program. Not one of them has gone back to benefit or unemployment. And over 20% of them actually started their own businesses, and others are actually working in. So that was a huge success. Commercially, a massive flop for us. It was terrible. They didn't pay their bills. So there's a whole lot of things that we learned in the process. But what we wanted to do is we learned that experiential process really connected to that audience, and they were able to learn things that they couldn't learn in a traditional setting. So then we went about how on earth do we bottle that up? How do we bottle that up and then scale it? Because that's just not scalable. So we started off in e-learning, and we created these learnings in e-learning, and we delivered them over a mobile phone. We found very quickly young people. My daughter, who's 21, is connected to her in every facet of her life. But you try and get her to train and learn on a mobile phone, she disengages. So we were like, okay, our first customer came along, which was the government, MSD, and I know there was supposed to be someone here from MSD, but I don't think they are yet. So they came to us and said, look, we've got a really big problem in the construction industry. We need to hire 75,000 people in civil construction in the next 6 months. And the current way we're doing it, we're bringing everyone into LSE Racecourse, and we're paying a fortune. It's costing $7,000 per person, and we're getting really poor outcomes. Can you come up with a better solution? And we're like, of course we can. All right, this is the VR project we've been working on. So it was in our R&D, and we was like, okay, we have to, this is our opportunity to have a customer and work on whether this actually works. We'd read all the research, we did all of those things, and it was very obvious from a research perspective, from a desktop perspective, it worked, but we need to put it into practice. So I'll cut a very long story short. 18 months later, we created 3 modules that replaced 5 days of training in a classroom. Those 3 modules were 30 minutes each. We compared those 3 modules to what they were doing in the classroom. In the classroom, they had less than 20% retention of information. And even worse, after 30 days, they had 70% people leaving their jobs. I think we've all been in that situation where we're not training them effectively, and the outcome of not training effectively, people have high anxiety on the job and they choose to leave. So that's what was happening, and it was costing the government millions and millions of dollars. So we came up with this new solution, VR, and in those 3 30-minute modules, we showed that we could retain the information after 1 year, 92%. So in a year, people were remembering what they did in their training in their headset, 92% versus less than 20% in 30 days. So it's like, wow. From that day on, that's when we woke up and said, we're going to do VR. Because we found that not only was VR more immersive, more experiential, it was fun, it was engaging, but the key thing from an ROI perspective was faster, and it allowed people to retain that information, which is so critical. When we all do training, and some companies do it better than others. We do it all over the world, and we've seen really large companies who like ticking a box. We tick a box and we pat ourselves on the back and say we've done the training, and that helps our insurance and helps whatever, but it does not help the people on the floor. And those are the people that we are really focused on. How do we change that the dial and ensure that we are making a behavioural change. And so we started that 6 years ago. And so when you think about the superpowers of VR, yes, it's the retention of information, it's the speed of delivery, but also when you get the opportunity to go into the headset and you're wanting to replicate a really dangerous situation in your business, you can't put them in that dangerous situation. Not legally anyway. And I wouldn't recommend that. But you can in a headset, and physiologically, all the same physiological responses happen. You will start sweating, your heart rate will increase. And when you take that headset off, you actually feel like you've been in that situation before. So when you are presented with that situation, a difficult one, you not only have more confidence, your anxiety levels are lower. And a great example of this is conflict management or conflict resolution. Anyone here in retail or anything to do with conflict in your business? Yeah, it must be police. Yes, you have a little bit to do with conflict. Yes. So you might be dealing with retailers right now. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to not understand what kind of rock we have all come out of post-COVID. We seem to be more angry, we seem to be less patient, less tolerant, and there's a lot of aggression on the front line. And that aggression is translating to some very high anxiety on our retail workers and our frontline workers. So we put people through a violent and aggressive training behaviour that literally takes them into a situation that elevates their heart rate, they might even start sweating, and they feel like they're in a situation. But it's a safe place. They know it's a safe place, and they can converse, and they can go into that situation, and they can, we call it sandpit, so they literally can play in this area and get their confidence, build their self-esteem, and then when they're on the front line, and that actually happens, because it happens every day, they feel a lot more better equipped. And what does that translate to in the company? The company gets to retain staff, they're not training people, they don't have the turnover, etc. But ultimately, their mental welfare and their mental well-being is so much better. That's just one example of a whole lot of other things. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about debunking a myth that VR is not scalable. Our largest customer is 2.4 million staff. You know how many workers we have in New Zealand? About 2.55 million. So basically, having one employer employ everyone in New Zealand. It's called Walmart. You might have heard of them. Yeah, so they have adopted VR for longer than we have, for 8 years. And every single one of their trainees goes through every 3 months, and I know this is tragic, it's the US, but every 3 months they go through a first shooter experience. And you might not know this, but there's actually a shooting on a Walmart premises every single day. And what does this actually do for those people? It equips them, and it gives them the confidence to go to work every day. So they use VR in a blended experience. So yes, VR is part of their whole training solution, but it's not their every solution. But 2.4 million of their staff every month go through VR training. So yes, it is scalable, and it's an anywhere, anytime training. And next time you're in a Walmart store, you walk into Walmart, you might see these big cylinders, which are just in the middle of the store, and you're like, that's weird. That's where they do their VR training. They take their headset, they go into this cylinder, which is basically around, and they do the training. And they're allocated a certain amount of training they have to do, and it's a very, very popular way of delivering that kind of learning. So that's a little bit about us. I've spoken enough. I'm going to hand over to the experts here. We're going to hear a little bit about, some of the questions is, how do you translate our traditional training, which might be face-to-face, might be e-learning, into a VR experience? We get that a lot, and Leroy will give you some tips, and we're going to hear from Ash, who's got a case study that we took a very traditional way of learning and delivered it in a VR.
Leroy. Yes. Looks like we're having fun, right? We love coming to work, and that photo was a candid photo taken as I had just finished an experience. I took it off, and one of the team snapped me and said, got a really good photo of you that shows that you enjoyed the experience and you look a little bit cheeky, so I thought, okay, I'll use that photo. And Ash is looking sideways there because he's not sure what's going to happen next. If you're in learning and development, then you probably had an opportunity to either create or complete e-learning modules. If you work for any organisation, there'll be an e-learning module that you would have had to complete. And it's usually a compliance module. Health and safety, privacy policy, cyber security policy, information security, all of those policies. And my experience with that, because I've been on that side, is that you create a module and then every year you change the figures out. You got to laugh at that, it's a grin. Okay, so traditional learning is passive as opposed to engaging with immersive learning. Traditional training, I should say, you learn by watching. You're watching and you learn, or you're sitting in a classroom and there's someone up front talking to you, as opposed to learning by doing. That's the key thing with immersive learning. As Sandra pointed out, you're in this safe environment and you actually get the opportunity to do things. And do it as many times as you want until you get it right, which is pretty cool. It's forgettable. Again, for those in learning, Ebbinghaus curve, you know, what is the retention over when you go to a one-day workshop, how much of it do you remember the next day? How many times have you gone and got a folder, taken the folder, put it down on the desk and a colleague walks in and says, how was the session? How was the workshop? And you go, oh, well, you had to be there, right? Because you can't remember anything. So that Ebbinghaus curve, you know, 50% dropping off in 24 hours. With immersive learning, it's memorable again, as Jake said. 1 year down the track, it's still got people retaining that information because they've done it over and over and again, muscle memory. Okay, hours. Again, if you're doing an e-learn module, if you have to go to a workshop, 1 day, half a day session, it's a couple of hours out of your time. With immersive learning, it's James said, 30 minutes was our first modules that we did. We've now narrowed that down to 15 minutes. That's the sweet spot for us. 15 minutes is the time that we believe you should have for your module. And why do we do that? Because the cognitive load on the learner. Some people, when they put on a headset, it's not for them. They get dizzy, they feel nauseous as well. But 15 minutes or less, obviously if they're going to feel nauseous, they're going to feel nauseous, but with 15 minutes, it's enough time for us to deliver the key messages that you need in that module. Really, really important point. So minutes versus hours, and then there's the basic data. Okay, so the basic data that you get from your courses. Finish up your sheet, your feedback form, lighting right, food right, you get the food right, cool. Temperature right, tick, 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 that's the feedback. If it's an e-learn, how long did they spend in the module? What questions did we ask? Which questions did they get wrong? Which questions did they get right? And for the executive, it's normally, what are the completion records? If it's a health and safety module, we need 100% completion. So did we actually get everything completed? How many staff have not completed it? How many are in progress? How many haven't started? All of those data, that's real basic data. We can still give you all of that in immersive learning, but we can give you so much more. We can tell you where the person was looking in the experience, how long they looked. We can tell you how long it took for the person to react to a situation. I was speaking to a couple of people here about, you know, if it was in a manufacturing situation and there was a cut-off switch or a button that needed to be hit and the alarm went off and it's on the left-hand side just as it is with the machine that you have on your site. The learner looks to the right, to the left, and looks around and the buzzer's going off and then goes, oh, it's over there, and hits it. From a health and safety perspective, that's not what you're after. You want that learner to know that if they hear that sound, boom, hit that switch, cut it off straight away. So we can tell you where they looked, how long it took for them to react, and then what actions they took as well. If they're having a conversation, because we do conversational modules as well, we can tell you where they're looking when they're having a conversation. We can tell you whether or not they're smiling when they're having that conversation. You know, and the advancements of technology, you know, we can tell you where their hands are as well, where their foot placements are, all this technology is coming. So there's a lot of differences between that simple slide there, traditional training versus immersive training, and the list keeps going on and on and on and on. So let's just have a recap on that. Often delivered in lectures versus anywhere. Put a headset on. So if you've got, as you were saying earlier, people down country, small remote areas, headset, ship it, modules already on there, put it on, put those people through that experience. The environment, so we create environments that are real life environments. So if it's on a retail shop floor, if it's in a fast food environment, if it's in a warehouse, we'll create those environments and we'll brand it so that it looks like your environment. So again, when the learner puts their headset on, oh, I'm in our warehouse. We've done modules for banking organisations, we've done them for financial services. Again, a person sitting as a call centre operator, associate, sitting at their desk and they're looking to the right and they can see posters, their organisation's posters around simple frameworks that they need to follow, the steps they need to take, making it as realistic as possible for the learner to be able to sit there and go, oh yeah, I feel like I'm at work, I'm in the office. We talk about that flexibility, more flexible, allowing the learners to go through the process as many times as they want and get it right. Practice, practice, practice. And as I talked about that assessment as well, performance-based assessment is real-time feedback. So we can give feedback in a immersive learning experience when the learner has selected something. So if they've selected an MCQ, a multi-choice question, we can obviously give them feedback. We can give that with an avatar, a coach that spawns in the scene and says, oh, that was an interesting response. Asking other questions, what made you go down that path? And then give them some corrective feedback. So there's so many different techniques that we can employ when we're building these modules. It makes it just a greater experience for the learner. So the immersive learning process, there's actually 4 pillars here. Lessons and activities are combined as one. I'd like to split them up on this piece here. Strategy, the curriculum design, lessons and activities, and quality assurance. And I'm just going to step you through what they mean. So when we talk about strategy, it's about the business objective. What is the business strategy? And so from a design perspective, that's the first thing that we need to get right. You need to know exactly what is the business objective that you have. And it should be a measurable goal, and it should be a challenge or an initiative or something that's critical to the success of the business. And so our sales team and the design team will be asking that question. The most important thing with that business objective is that it needs to be linked to people or a section of people within your organisation, so a population of learners. And so we're wanting to know who is the target audience, and we'll drill deep into that target audience. We want to know the persona of those that target audience, so that we can better understand who we're delivering and who we're designing a module for. So these steps here are so that when you think about whether or not VR is right for you, and I believe that it is, because there's always a use case, you need to think about your strategy and who you're targeting in that. The curriculum design is the second pillar, and it's all about linking our design to the business objectives and the use case. So what do we actually want to teach in that immersive learning experience? So we want to be able to create something that's going to be meaningful and is actually going to get the behavioural change that you're looking for as an organisation. So lessons is about teaching learners information and processes they need to know, and activities is about teaching learners the processes and activities that they need to do to capture in the training. What are we going to capture them doing? And the last one is quality assurance or quality control. So we have a setup here where we have an instructional design team. It's myself, Ash, and one other instructional designer. And then we have Unity or developers who build our modules. And then we have our enterprise team, that's our platform. And then we have QA or quality control. And so for each of those areas within the business, there are quality standards that we have to adhere to. So for the design team, we have our quality standards for design. And we have to check our designs against our quality standards. So peer review, sign-off points, the art and animation team as well will go through to their quality standards. You know, and for art and animation, for example, it could be they've created a character and we're asking the character to wave. So does the character wave naturally, or does the character's arm go up here and then down here and swing around? So we actually have these standards that they have to meet, and we're reviewing, and we will review and iterate on the design until we get it right before we deploy. And that's then releasing it to the client. Okay, so there's a long process. Well, there's processes that don't take long because we streamlined all those processes. We know exactly what we're doing. Any questions on that?
The avatar that's created, is it you guys created through Adobe Illustrator, or is there another application that you use?
No, so our art and animation team, they're graphic artists, so they're actually creating it through there. It's not Adobe Illustrator. Yeah. Good question.
Just a question on your processes. You know how you talked about that example of some people may put the headset on and they might get dizzy?
Yes.
Is there a process where you determine, like for us at Wycliffe with our students, which students will not be suitable for that? Like they may have a medical issue, they're on medication, epilepsy, things like that.
Yes, it's an awesome question. So part of our user testing and what we also put in some in the modules as well is we ask the learner those questions. So if they do suffer from that, one of the things is that we do look at accessibility and what are the triggers for someone with epilepsy. And so if there's particular colours that we shouldn't be using in the designs, then we'll incorporate that into our design process as well. So that accessibility is a really key piece of that design process. But the easiest way is we always say that if at any stage you're feeling dizzy, take the headset off. Yeah. And when we're doing testing, we've got people in the building as well that they'll be in it, we're testing, and they're like, I just feel dizzy. They'll just take the headset off straight away. Okay.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Okay, so our design philosophy, we call it the 3 E's. So there's the 3 E's of learning, which is experience, exposure, and educate, widely commonly known. But for us, we've taken that internally and we've gone engaging, effective, and efficient. And that's what we want to build when we're doing our modules. And it's always front of mind when we're engaging with clients, when we're storyboarding, and even when the art team is developing their pieces of work for us, and obviously when the developers are doing it. We're always looking for are we delivering on our design philosophy of the 3 E's. So engaging. It's to engage with the learner's senses and emotions for us. We need to connect with the learner. So when we talk about those environments, put them in that environment, we want them to feel that they're actually there. That this looks real. So powerful storytelling, the immersive environments that we create. And what I mean by powerful storytelling is, you know, it's important that whatever we're writing, what scripts we're writing, has to be realistic as well. We don't want to be robotic in our, you know, if we need to be writing for a target audience that English is a second language, then that's a consideration. So we'll use Plus Kincaid, we'll run our scripts through that to make sure that we're doing it at the appropriate reading level for the audience that we're targeting as well. Really important piece. Interactive mechanics. So the development of our mechanics, we have a whole team that works on the mechanics. And what we mean by that is, what are the tools or the mechanisms that we're going to use to capture feedback? So if we're going to ask a multi-choice question, what does that look like in the headset as opposed to what it would look like in an e-learning? How might we present that in such a way that it doesn't obstruct the learner? It's not too intrusive. but it's actually really a nice feel, so that the interface is nice for the learner. You know, we've incorporated slider mechanics, we've got a record mechanic. So how does that work? Ask a question and get you to record your response. Give you an opportunity to hear your response back and re-record if you're not happy with that response. Great way of practicing, right? And a really good way of engaging with the learner. They can try the first time they listen to, ooh, is that what I sound like? I'll have another go. We can also give them a prompt. Here's an ideal script that you might want to use in this situation, and they can practice that, record that multiple times. We've done a module, recently completed a module for my tahu, for the shot over kick. And that experience there, what was really important was that we incorporated a te reo. So they wanted us to make sure that their employees understood what the values were for kaitahu, and understood the common language that is used, what they can incorporate into their day-to-day. And so we actually recorded, we used our record mechanic to phonetically break that down, had the pronunciation, they could practice, and then we gave them a scenario where they needed to identify those words and how they would apply that, or the values, how they would apply that in their everyday, and complete the recording for that before they progressed on. Feedback from that is that they really, really liked that, because again, when you think about Charlotte, we had a lot of tourists coming through from all around the world, and so giving them that little bit of cultural awareness and knowledge was really, really powerful as well. I talked about engaging, but realistic and relevant, I mentioned that already, so realistic and relevant in the engaging piece. Effective is using the feedback mechanisms to track progress. So effective means clearly defined learning outcomes. So when we talk about business outcomes, what are the learning objectives, what are the learning outcomes that we want, what is the performance criteria that we're looking for? That's effective because you're going to measure against that. And then the learner-focused design. So what we mean by learner-focused design is that when we know who our learner is, everything we do is about the learner. We obviously know what the business objective is, we know what the learning objectives are, but now we need to go, let's focus on the learner. How do we make this effective for the learner so that they feel comfortable going through? And then assessment and feedback. We talked about feedback earlier, what the types of things that we do to get feedback. And the efficient, let's not waste time and effort. So, respecting the learner's time, user-friendly interface, and the last one is accessibility that we mentioned before. Okay, so efficient is, if you're an organisation and you have a large number of employees, you don't have time, and I've worked in retail, so I know that, you know, to do a 10-minute e-learn is probably a 20-minute e-learn. And if you've got 20 staff, then you've got to put all of them through that. You don't have the time. So again, 5-10-minute module in a headset respects the organisation's time, but it respects the learner's time. Because while they're doing that, they still have the work that they need to go back to, or the tasks that are building up. And obviously, if you're doing it e-learn, you can play the video and take a phone call, send an email. Okay, so the module design process. This is really, really quickly. For those in instructional design will be familiar with this. It's ADDIE. So we use ADDIE: analysis, design, develop, and implement, and evaluate. So again, analysis is objectives, understanding exactly what we're trying to achieve. The design solution is selecting those mechanics, the storyboard, the narrative, what we're building into that design itself. Developers, when we send it across to our development team, and developers also when we send it to our art and animation team to create the characters, the environments, and everything else. Implementation is testing the solution. So that is where we're doing our QA, but also when we're ready, we're passing that on to the client to do your internal user acceptance testing, to do your QA as well, to give us feedback, so we iterate to get the module to where it needs to be, and then evaluate is the last stage of that. And that's actually really important, is how are we measuring the success of the module. If we've designed it right, and we've hit all of the performance criteria in our design, the learning outcomes, the learning objectives are there, the business objectives are really clear, we understand what our success metrics are going to be, then we go back and we check. And it's not just a launch and leave, here you go, see you later, we'll come back in a year. It's with us customer success team, it's 3 months, it's 6 months, it's 9 months, it's 12 months. How are we tracking? Have you been able to deploy it to all of your employees that were in the pilot or in the release? If not, where are we tracking? What do we need to do to support you to get that through? But also, are we tracking in the right way? If it was to have a reduction in the number of complaints, if it was in a retail environment or in a contact centre, well, let's run a pilot. Well, let's see where the numbers are based on last year. What was the benchmark? Where are we tracking now? So really doing that deep dive and analysis. And again, it's really important that organisations think about that evaluation of the learning, because that's what's going to drive any decisions to continue with VR. Once you prove that it works, then you get approval. Any questions on that? I've skimmed that very quickly, but happy to sort of delve a little bit deeper. So Ash is senior learning designer here, and he's going to give you a bit of a case study, talk you through this.
Awesome. Thanks, Leroy. Appreciate that. We're really proud of our processes. We're really passionate about learning. We're really passionate about making sure that the learning hits the mark. And that's why, for me personally, when I came from traditional learning to working with James and virtual reality, was an opportunity to take learners into a different place. And the key word, one of the key words I want you to take away from what Leroy was talking about was that immersiveness. I'm not here to teach you about Site-Safe Passport, but I'll give you an overview. But is anyone familiar with the Site-Safe Passport? Cool? Awesome. So for those that don't, that was our business problem, which was we were tasked with taking a course that is traditionally taught in a classroom, and still is, because it's still an effective tool, and taught in online. But we were tasked with translating that content into a VR module. And so the business problem, we need to ensure that entry-level workers, anyone that needs to work on a construction site, know their basic responsibilities from a health and safety point of view. Because what is the problem? What is the business problem, do you think? Like, what is the thing we're trying to stop on construction sites? Civil, building, construction sites.
Complacency.
Complacency? Yes. What do we want people to do at the end of the day? Go home. That's it. So how do we create something that really gets the learner thinking about that? So we're basically trying to reduce death and injury. And so the target audience was anyone new to that industry, and they need to know those responsibilities. And so you can imagine you're going into a classroom, you're either digesting, downloading information, you're having someone in front of you talk. Now, can someone answer, who do you think made up the target audience? Think about who we had to think about as our target audience. Who do you think were on these work sites? What do you think one of the challenges would be about that audience? Yes. Everyone? So English is a second language. So you imagine already we've got another hurdle from traditional e-learning and classroom is that language barrier. And what is being on a construction site about? It's about putting into practice health and safety strategies and protocols. And how you best do that? It's by doing, which is what VR is. It's immersive. So, as I said, it was currently online, and it's half a day. And so Leroy talked about effectiveness and efficiency. So we managed to get the learning down to a 30 to 40 minute, and that's across multiple. Now, we've had learnings, and that's why we aim for a 15-minute module, but this was sort of as we're on the journey. And it's about getting integrity and respecting the learner's time and making sure that we serve up the information, the learning that's required at a pace that is digestible for the learner. So how does the immersive learning help? It provides an engaging and immersive way to participate and develop those safety skills in realistic scenarios. So essentially, what did we do? We were able to get the learner to go into those environments. So we were able to put them into, they've actually spent the day on a construction site and they move around to different scenarios. But the key thing was getting them to learn by doing. So we focused on three things. Now, there was 106 questions or 120 questions that make up the pool of the assessment at the end. Now, let's just say, because they are still good tools, but in the classroom environment, learners were guided and handheld a lot of the way. And at the end of the day, they still walk out of there with some knowledge. But what we're able to do is get the learners to go into the environment and actually demonstrate the things they need to do in a safe environment. And so it was made up of a number of activities. Basically, they have to do PPE identification, they have to do stepping through the work, which is planning your day, and they have to then identify hazards in a scene and apply a control. All stuff you can do in a classroom, all stuff you can do online, but you're kind of like a passenger. It's passive. Whereas when you're in the scene, you're doing those things. And we attach an assessment to it. So you're either doing it or you're not. You're competent or you're not. And the assessment will tell you. So we have things like they actually get welcomed by colleagues throughout the day. They move into the site office. So we can model a day on a construction site. They turn up for their toolbox talk. They get an overview. And then, because we're in VR, we're mixing in real life, but we also teach them how to use the module. And we frame up that they'll be going to different sites. By the way, we were able to split this into a variant for civil and a variant for construction. And you imagine that's our ability in VR to create the different environments. Like James was saying, physiologically you still feel like you're in that dangerous place. So we had a working at heights environment. We had a trench environment. We had about 5 different environments, but we got them to apply those same skills to the different environments. And so what was the success measurement? They had to do an assessment and they had to get an 80% pass. So we worked closely with SiteSafe. I worked with their instructional designer, and we created this as a team. And it's been a great tool. It's really, when English is a second language and you want to know if someone's competent, allow them to just go in and do the thing and show what they're doing. And they get to practice. If they don't get it right in one environment, they can practice in another environment. But it's the application of that knowledge to different scenarios. So, SiteSafe, it covers a lot of things. It was a great module in terms of being able to really have an effective outcome. So I just want to see if anyone's got any questions.
I mean, the feedback has been phenomenal from the people who actually get to go through that and the companies who are doing and delivering that. And we've got Ryan Perry, Civil, who can speak to how that has been accepted by the people within their business. But I think there's always going to be a tension commercially of cannibalization. So if everybody adopts VR, their traditional model is obsolete. And if their traditional model is obsolete, it challenges their whole business model. So there's a delicate road that we have to tread, but I think it's fair to say they've been overwhelmed by the feedback, and now the pressure is on them to adopt that with more companies on site. So if companies can deliver that on site, the ROI is huge. But if the companies still have to send their workers into SiteSafe to do a VR experience, the ROI is diminished. Just one other thing I'd add to this is a great example, because we get asked this a lot. Can you deliver qualifications in VR? Well, this is an example of how we've been able to deliver a qualification in health. If anyone has worked with NZQA before, you'll know that sometimes you have to fit a square peg in a round hole, and sometimes it can be a little bit more traditional and in what they're actually looking for. And what I mean by that is you have to show that you understand and can comply with certain standards. Now, when we first did this, our biggest challenge was to convince NZQA that you actually can deliver an assessment in a VR environment. And our first qualification that we did that with was COA, the security COA. And that took us 2 years to convince NZQA that by stepping back and putting your hands in certain situations, and we were able to assess that automatically, it was better than somebody assessing it more in a subjective manner as opposed to an objective manner. So yes, you can do qualifications in VR, and this is another example of being able to deliver a qualification aligned to third-party standards and delivered in a VR environment.
I'm going to wrap up and just saying that using the insights from VR data. But before I do that, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things, or to stress one particular thing is, we talk about being daring with this new technology, and it's awesome technology. And so you can fall into the trap of picking a use case that is really easy and it's fun. But if it's not aligned, as I said before, if it's not aligned to your business objectives, then it's probably not going to be successful. So really think about, be daring, be brave to actually challenge yourself. Go, actually, this is a problem that we have. Can VR solve that problem? And have a conversation with us. Have a conversation with our sales team. Fun doesn't always equate to engaging. So yes, at the first slide we're having fun and we love what we're doing, but fun doesn't necessarily mean engaging. And so it's, from a learner perspective, we apply those adult learning principles. Let me use the knowledge that I already have and apply that in the experience. Give me a problem to solve in the experience. Respect my time, make it challenging. And so all of those principles are really important when we're designing our modules, to think about. It's not a gotcha moment. It's not we're going to make it so easy here. You have got the experience and the knowledge, and if you don't, then we're providing you with the learning in the module for you to then be able to be assessed against that later on in the module. So it's really important that we think about how we design our modules, and gamification is the other thing. Is when we think about gamification, and it's probably not used the right way. Gamification is a place for it, but it can also be a demotivator when you consider, if you've got a leaderboard, how does the person who's not at the top of the leaderboard feel? It might be demotivating for that person. So I just challenge you to think about gamification as well, and how you're applying it, and whether or not it's being applied the right way to get the results that you're wanting. If you're trying to motivate people and you're saying that gamification is fun, it's only fun for the people that are at the top of the leaderboard and getting the treats. Okay, so data insights. So what can you use the data insights for? We've just got a couple of things here. You can use it to hire the right people and assess who's ready for the job. In MSD, the MSD roadshows that they hold, people can come and put on a headset and see what it's like to work in the tourism industry, see what it's like to be on a construction site. And actually, I really enjoy that. I think that might be the way for me. You can offer more training to those who need it, so across a diverse range. You can reinforce aspects of training and drive home learning objectives. So we're not saying that it's the panacea, that it's the answer, it's the silver bullet to your training. It's being said by the blended, it's part of a blended learning approach. There's still a place for e-learning. There's still a place for face-to-face. But there are certain cases where you just don't get the cut-through that you're going to want yet unless you apply that immersive learning to it. It helps you to promote top performers who are most likely to succeed based on their performance. If you're doing a coaching conversation module and you're putting your team leaders through and you're thinking that team leader might be good for them to step up, put them through some coaching. Provide them the coaching, you can still do the face-to-face coaching or the e-learning coaching, the theoretical. Now put them through the scenario and see how they play, how that plays out for them. You might get some really good insights into how they're going to respond in these different situations. It provides you with upskilling opportunities to prepare people for the jobs of the future as well. If you've got something that's going to happen, that's specifically changing your organisation, you need to prepare your people for that. VR is a good way to utilise that. And nicely, like the metrics are there, like it's limitless really to what we can capture. We capture data, but we're not even serving that data up yet, but it's there for our clients to be able to tap into when they're ready.
You're all going to get to experience this after. So if you're interested, we have a process that you can literally choose whatever industry you're in, and we connect it to a LLM, which is a large language model, and you're able to set up your employees to ask this avatar anything you want related to your industry. And why is that really cool? Well, there's no scripts, there's no branch. It's literally you're connecting with an avatar, which you can make that avatar look any way you like, and you choose how that avatar looks. But with AI now, it is rapidly advancing so that the things that we've gone through from e-learning to VR has been largely branch learning and this branching of how we design a learning experience. That's no longer. There's no longer finite branches that you can create. It is literally infinite. And so you connect it with a large language model, and for those of you who don't know what large language model is, it's basically connecting it to a big repository of information. Basically connecting it to all of your SOPs in your company in an AI which can be pulled out from a question and answered within seconds. So incredibly powerful, especially if you've got some mundane information that you want to get across in a more relevant, immersive and engaging way. And it's super fast. And I'd also say within our content creation tool, you can do it yourselves. You don't need us, you can actually create it yourselves. So when you're thinking about your more mundane training, or perhaps the things that are in manuals, etc., is a fantastic way to give people the tool that, what is the answer to that? They can put a headset on and literally ask this thing anything related to your business. So that's where AI is coming in, and it's really powerful. And it's also what we call it on rails. So by connecting it to a large language model, you're not going to it won't go off the reservation, so to speak. So it won't go off and do and answer silly things in silly ways, because you're literally trained it to just answer a certain thing related to the information that you have given it in this large language model. So if you're interested in that, we've got a demo of that one as well. So when you're thinking about training your managers or training your people or your team leaders who are responsible for doing interviews, even speeches, or having any interaction with people, it's a wonderful way of training those people and giving them a safe space to trial in an environment that they will learn super, super quickly and get the feedback really quickly as well. We call it virtual speech. It's one of our partners who is in the US. They've got, about 150 modules that anything from, you could put my 12-year-old son in there and teach him how to public speak, through to giving him confidence to speak to other people, all the way up to doing performance reviews and taking them through those experiences, all driven by AI and whatever avatar you choose to be talking to. So I know it's mind-blowing, but that's how fast that has gone in 6 months. 6 months ago, that wasn't even a possibility. Now we're already leading the way in the world of delivering this kind of training. Pretty cool. So I'm going to hand over to Dean very quickly. He's going to go through some of the logistics, because we always get asked the question, so how do you actually deliver this? Before, we're going to put the headsets on you and let you go and play.
Morning everyone. So this is what we're talking about. For those that haven't seen one before, those that have been exposed to VR for some years, it's amazing where this technology has come from. From where it was even 10 years ago, the thousands of dollars you would need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars, the logistics, the scanners and sensors, the costs involved were huge. This today is about the cost of half a mobile phone. So for the cost of less than the device in your pocket, you could be distributing training across your whole organization. And everything that Leroy and Ash have talked about and James has been talking about, all that work goes into delivering something through this little gadget right here. It's quite amazing. There's a number of things you need to consider in order to roll it out. You can see there, so we have people, hardware, software, management, data, insights. It's oversimplifying it, but that's the gist of it. Which one do you think is the most important for it to be successful in business? Anyone? People. Everything else can be organized. Us at SkillsVR, we have software, platforms, systems that take care of everything else for you. The thing that the business and you need to get right if you're looking at implementing this is getting the right people involved. Now, the natural place for this to start is in L&D. Of course, you need to identify what the use cases are. You need to find the lowest hanging fruit and what's going to prove the success of the technology. Where we've seen failures, and since I've been with SkillsVR, I've been involved in maybe 50 deployments of the technology, some successful, and we've had a few failures as well. The number one reason why it fails is not because of the technology, the challenges, the learning they've chosen, it's because not everyone in the business is invested in it. So where we've seen the most failures is when the project team, L&D, we're working on developing a module, it stays within that team. Don't like the word gatekeeping, but essentially when L&D gatekeep the project, it's all completed, it's shiny, it's new, everyone's excited. We go to deliver it, no one else is across it. Senior leadership, of course, from an approval point of view for the project, but the trainers, end users, regional managers, the people that are actually going to have the technology with them and going to be delivering it, they're not on board. All of our successful implementation is when the whole business, you have representation. You have people along for the journey, people are invested in it, they want to see it succeed. So people is important. Everything else, as I say, we can take care of with SkillsVR. So we can organize the devices, the software to make it all work, the data and the analytics that the team's talking about. That can all be taken care of with our SkillsVR framework software. How do you implement, how do you deploy, how do you scale? That's where we shine. The people part is a collaborative process. So working into the deployment of a module that you might be working on, we would be working in parallel very closely with the business to organize the delivery strategy. That's the number of trainers you would like to get through, what is the training, who's going to deliver it, the technology, the security. Another very important piece of the puzzle is you can't keep it hidden from IT, because eventually they're going to hear about it and eventually they're going to block it. So it needs to be begun and start with IT at the beginning of the process, because we all know how long that can take. So I won't take too much of your time. I know my audience, it's L&D. We just wanted to highlight a few of those things, and I'll be around if anyone wants to hear about some of the successful deployments, and often the more interesting is the unsuccessful deployments, because that's where we get to learn. We can talk through framework and activate. But I'm going to hand you back to James just to close it out. He will take you through the offer for today.
Now we have headsets. That's a Quest 3, which is one of the latest ones, $500. And we've naturally got a promotion where the Quest Pro, in my view, is the best headset on the market, including the Apple Vision Pro. $1,000 USD, where we can sell them for $300 USD. So the barrier of hardware has disappeared. So like 5 years ago, we were forking out close to $9,000 per unit. And no, they were not mobile. We'd have to get two people to carry these big old boxes around. And so wherever that VR box was, that's where the VR training was. And also you had these sensors in all the corners. It was crazy. Anyway, so now that's it. That's all it is. So what we've actually done and we've learned is that we've got this incredible platform that delivers your Rolls-Royce experience, but we don't want to put learner drivers in a Rolls-Royce because you don't know what you don't know. So what we're offering is basically, we call it Activate. Let's get you started And the first thing that you need to do when you get started on VR is managing of the headset. We call it MDM, Mobile Device Manager. And in most companies, you'll have an MDM anyway that manages your laptops, manages your phones, etc. So that's where you start. And then you can build up as you mature in your experience of VR, all the way up to what we call a mature adopter, where you can create your own modules. We have our own content creator that can create your own modules. So to thank you all for joining us today and making it worthwhile and getting you on the journey, we're going to give each company your own headset. So you're going to leave here with a headset which is already provisioned. Listen to that. It's a little better. It's a little better. Jeez.
We were in shock.
It's kind of too good to be true. It's like a really tough crowd. And in this box you get $1 million as well. No, that's not true. So in these boxes, we're giving you one per company. It's certainly really, really easy. You open it up, and in here you've just got how to activate your headset. And all you really need to do is connect it to your Wi-Fi. Yep, and it'll take you through, we'll connect you to the Wi-Fi, and then you'll have a library of our content that you can play with, you can share with your colleagues, and tell them how much of an amazing experience this is. And then all we ask for is within a month, one of these guys is going to come and talk to you about your experience. Anyway, this is for you to trial and play with, experience, because it's, you know, being true to our word, you've literally just sat there listening to us. This is not how we do things. We do things where you need to experience, you need to learn by doing. The best way to do that is give you a headset, go home, take it to the office, share your experiences, because we know 100% it will change your learning and your experiences across your organisation. Not one company has ever come back to us and said, gee, I'm so pissed off we did that. That was just not very good use of money. So it doesn't matter whether you're a company with 2 people, 1 person, or a company with 2.4 million people. This is the future, but it's here now. And these things here are so cost effective now. I mean, I take you back 5 years. It was just cost prohibitive for anyone in New Zealand. So we started our business, our first customers were in the US, because no one in New Zealand could afford these. So now they are affordable, and we're here as a New Zealand company to hopefully proliferate the use of XR technology. And we're also here to help. We've got some incredible people, you've heard from some of them today, and now we get to play.
I feel like we're at an Oprah show.
I like that. All right, here's some experiences. So I was talking to you about the AI conversation. So the top one here, that is an avatar where it's coaching conversations. You can ask the person anything you possibly want to, and you're going to get an answer that will relate to best practice.